Welcome to Radio 64. Welcome to Radio 64, Video Game Music Remix Radio. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as duskvstweak. Radio 64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. Please rate, subscribe, and share this show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We opened the show with that rockin' intro piece, Bullet Hell by DusK from ocremix.org from the game Gunstar Heroes. And that track is part of the Be Aggressive, a Gunstar Heroes tribute album, the 1993 Genesis game Gunstar Heroes, which I saw somebody streaming recently on Twitch, and I was shocked by how good the game looked. Still, in 2020, this 1993 Sega Genesis game still looked pretty darn gorgeous. And what a ripping soundtrack this is. That whole album is very much like what we just listened to by DusK. Very aggressive, very rock heavy, a lot of aggressive metal rock. And this one, DusK has that heavy rock style down to an art. But I love that like dawning of the battlefield intro that comes in with this track. While it is doing a lot of heavy aggressive drums and guitar, it has so much synth in there, flavoring it and giving it this electronic coating that I think really elevates it from just what could be a pretty great rock track to something that feels arcadey as well. That's what this does. It feels like you're coming in to conquer the arcade. Next up is a pretty relaxing, mellow piece, very waterfall laden. This comes from Sonic Colors, a game that looks pretty, but I haven't played. This is a groovy piece. It's got some fun sound samples in there. I don't know if those sound samples of Sonic talking about copyright law are from the game or from something else. It's a very light, starry sound to the whole thing, very spacey with that synth, and I think it's a vibraphone in there. This is Go Into the Light by Rexy from ocremix.org from the game Sonic Colors. That is Go Into the Light by Rexy from ocremix.org from the game Sonic Colors. Something about that main beat is just so boppy already. Everything just feels kind of slowed down from what it originally should be. It's a cool piece that holds your attention because it feels like it's constantly doing something interesting without being as aggressive as that Gunstar Heroes track we had just listened to. Up next is a Final Fantasy VII track. And what I love about this song is called Rare Square. You have bustatunez and the Orichalcon, the artist here. And what they've done is they've taken the North Cave and Countdown themes from Final Fantasy VII by Nobuo Uematsu, and they've filtered it as if it was coming from an old Rare game. The one it reminds me most, absolutely, is from GoldenEye 64. And there have been times where I forgot I had this track on the playlist. I'm just listening to Overclocked on shuffle anyways, and this comes on, and I think I'm listening to a Rare track, a game from Rare, their Nintendo 64 time, and then I have to look and I realize, no, this is the Final Fantasy VII track they've done. And I think the mission to make this Final Fantasy VII track sound like it came from a different developer is 100% successul. It's got wide brassy sounds, and the constant synth beeping sound feels right out of certain GoldenEye levels in there. It has it's that orchestral sound while feeling very cavernous. This is Rare Square by bustatunez and the Orichalcon from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. That is Rare Square by Bustatunez and the Orichalcon from ocremix.org from the game Final Fantasy VII. And you can find that track also on the Final Fantasy VII Voices of Life Stream album, the album that came out in 2007. Okay, you know what? I meant to play this track forever ago. When I first started this show, this was one of the songs I wanted to put on earlier, but it was winter, and I didn't pick the song because it's Her Smile in Every Summer, and it is a very summery song. And what happened is, summer came along, and I just didn't even realize it. Not that I didn't realize this song existed, the idea that it's summer right now did not even click. The idea in quarantine, like, it's summertime, never even entered my mind. So when I was going through some of my playlists and I saw this track, I'm like, oh, right, it is July, isn't it? So I probably would have played this back in May had I really been thinking of it, but same as with days, I have to remind myself what month it is, let alone what season. This is a remix of the Outset Island theme from The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, and Hot Freaks have turned it into something that feels like it's from Weezer's Blue album. The vocals, the instrumentation, the way everything in this track is mixed, it feels right out of Weezer's 90s playbook. This is Her Smile in Every Summer by Hot Freaks from ocremix.org from the game The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker.
There was once a girl I felt I'd known forever. Her name in every song, her smile in every summer. Across the continent we'd go on adventure, but now we are apart. But I
was Her Smile in Every Summer by Hot Freaks from ocremix.org from The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker. That track is one of my wife's favorite tracks, period, from OC Remix. She loves it. She loves to sing along with it. She has no interest in the Legend of Zelda series in general. I think she kind of watched me play Wind Waker, but this track is just so fun. It's so happy and so boppy. And even though it is kind of a happy song, it's a bit sad too that longing our singer has for his love that he might not see again. RebeccaETripp is at it again, this time from Chrono, another very woodwinds heavy orchestral new age track. So many of her tracks have this foresty atmospheric sound, and yet they all sound very I don't know how you're able to create so many tracks with a similar style and keep them all so different. I think Chrono is one of those soundtracks that lends itself to this style. This track specifically is Yasunori Mutsada's Island of the Earth Dragon from Chrono Cross. But yeah, the use of harps and strings and all the woodwinds in here creates a very eerie, mystical sound I think certain tracks from Chrono Cross were already creating. So this is Guldove Shaman by RebeccaETripp from ocremix.org from the game Chrono Cross. that was Guldove Shaman by RebeccaETripp from ocremix.org from the game Chrono. I think I'd like to see her do something scary too, like take this style she has and remix some of those save room tracks from Resident Evil, maybe like Resident Evil 2. See if she can make something a bit more spooky with her woodwind sound. We have a fun mix and mash of Mega Man 2 characters. It's the tragic drowning of Heat Man, and so TJH, the Guitar Hero, they're mixing Bubble Man and Heat Man, both their stage tracks, into one. I think it's interesting because the whole track actually has the textures feel very bubbly and like they match Bubble Man's level stage a little bit more, but you've got that Heat Man source in there and it just creates this really funky bubbly track. There's something that TJH does with his synth that just feels so adventurous and so skybound, so leaves me with this sense of longing for adventure. I think that's the sound I've heard a lot in TJH's Pokemon Mystery Dungeon tracks, but it's here as well. It's a bit more mellow than some of those other Pokemon Mystery Dungeon tracks that TJH has done. So this is the Tragic Drowning of Heat Man by TJH from ocremix.org from the game Mega Man 2. That was The Tragic Drowning of Heat Man by TJH from ocremix.org from the game Mega Man 2. Kind of a dark title there, too. You just imagine Bubble Man holding Heat Man's head underwater. Yeah. To counteract a couple of those mellow tracks we were playing, here comes Dungeons Full of Glitches by Rockos and Danton Freitas. They've taken the Dungeon is Full of Monsters theme from Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars and made it a really mean, aggressive track. Nothing, all canine teeth. I mean, Monsters is right. This track is a dragon. It's coming from the album Super Mario RPG Window to the Stars, which is a really cool Super Mario RPG tribute album, because a lot of the tracks aren't exactly how you would have expected them to be. There's a lot of really interesting takes, I don't know, musical risk taken on this album. This is Dungeon Full of Glitches by Rockos and Danton Freitas from Super Mario RPG Window to the Stars from the game Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. That was Dungeon Full of Glitches by Rockos and Danton Freitas from Super Mario RPG Window to the Stars from the game Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. That relentless guitar and drums with those glitches, it really does create a disturbing sound. And it's funny because like the dungeons in Super Mario RPG aren't really that scary or intense. There's a few puzzles that I got stuck at, but that was sometimes just because of the strange perspective of that isometric view in the game. But I don't really think of Super Mario RPG as a aggressive game, but that track would have you believe that you are gonna get more than a bloody nose in those dungeons. We've been playing a couple tracks from albums here, and we got another one because this one is brand new. It's one I'm excited for. It's called Golden Sun, A World Reignited, and it's a whole tribute album to the Golden Sun franchise. Gosh, what is that? That's Golden Sun and Golden Sun: The Lost Age, right? They need to come out with that third Golden Sun game. But there are 37 tracks on this album. That's 2.5 hours of music of pure Golden Sun love. So if you were a fan and enjoyed Golden Sun and The Lost Age, you should definitely do yourself a favor and go check this out. It's the Golden Sun, A World Reignited. You can find that on SoundCloud and go over to Overclocked Remix and check out some of the tracks. But I downloaded that right away. I've just been jamming out to it on iTunes and SoundCloud. So the track I have picked, I don't take a lot of chances right away. I looked for the one track that I knew I would recognize. It was my favorite track from the game, and it's the Elemental Stars. We've played remixes of Elemental Stars before, but this one's done by Sam Dillard, whose mastery of that orchestral, bombastic sound that is probably best compared to John Williams is fantastic. And he's taken the Within the Stars sound, which I tend to always hear as a very somber piece of music, one that I think, because it also fills me up with nostalgia, it gets me feeling that a bit of melancholia there. But Within the Stars doesn't really lean in to the somber nature of it. It takes what is kind of a quieter, thoughtful piece and just makes it bigger without losing the heart. So while it is still that ancient, somber piece from Golden Sun, it's just bigger. It's a full orchestra. It feels like it's a symphonic, big centerpiece of the soundtrack of this game. It feels cinematic. So this is Within the Stars by Sam Dillard from the album Golden Sun, A World Reignited from the game Golden Sun. That was Within the Stars by Sam Dillard from Golden Sun, A World Reignited from the game Golden Sun. Free albums. I love them. I love every time Overclocked Remix puts out one of these free albums. I download the whole thing and just dedicate like the week to listening to that music. It's great. Especially when it's based off of a game that I played. Every now and then they put out an album for games that I haven't played. I'm like, okay, well, I can appreciate the music. But then they put out something that I grew up with, and I'm like, yes, now I'm in it. Now I'm here. Another ambient track. This one is a lot darker and a lot creepier, eerie than maybe the RebeccaETripp track we listened to. Obliterator, where this track comes from, was an Amiga game from 1988. It looks like a side-scrolling action-adventure game, but the soundtrack sounds so heroic and optimistic that when you hear this remix, it felt like Mutagene, who remixed this, was like, no, this game is dark. This game is lights flickering on and off in the dark. This is something in the vents looking down at you. Very edge of your seat, though minimalist piece. This is Gun and Bass by Mutagene from ocremix.org from the game Obliterator. That was Gun and Bass by Mutagene from ocremix.org from the game Obliterator. Even those slightly faster paced drums that show up, they're still creepy. It almost sounds like war drums with all that going on. There's nothing comforting about that track. And my apologies, I don't have a track to follow that up that is gonna put you in a happier place, because this is another dark track, a little bit more electronic industrial. There's some heavy distortion in this track that just feels like a hand grabbing you and pulling it into this song. So yeah, I didn't pick like a happy song to offset Obliterator. Obliterator. This is Treacherous Road by About Blank from ocremix.org from the game Sword of Vermilion. That was Treacherous Road by About Blank from ocremix.org from the game Sword of Vermilion, a 1990 Sega Genesis game. I think I knew I was listening to something creepy with that kind of ticking clock sound that opens the song, and it's just like, well, nothing that starts with a ticking clock is a peaceful song. That mean aggressive countdown riff that's playing, it plays all the way to the end of this song. There's never a moment where it's like, and now relax. That was the last track of the episode, so thank you for listening to Radio64, Video Game Music Remix Radio. I'm your host, Eric Mickles, also known online as DusKvstweak. Radio64 is part of the Radio Meanwhile network. Visit radiomeanwhile.com for more information about this and other great podcasts. Share your thoughts on this episode and request music by following the show on Facebook or Twitter at Radio64Pod. Please rate, subscribe, and share the show on Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.